Call the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission meeting to order at 4 p.m. We'll start with roll call.
Actually, Chairman Derryberry, we actually need to do some oath of office first.
That's true. I got ahead of myself here. We need to actually swear in our new commissioners. So for those, I believe Linda was sworn in. So Angela, Concepcion, and Michelle, you guys are going to get sworn in by the city clerk here. So if you don't mind to join her in front of the podium, and we'll all stare at you.
Okay.
And since there's a group of you, I'm going to read you.
Good.
So please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of California, against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which you are about to enter?
I do affirm.
Okay, I need your signature on these. Here.
So Jerry, we're now official, right?
You're official.
I'm so used to the order. I think I'm a creature of habit. So now that we're all official, let's go ahead and have the roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Concepcion Harris.
Present.
Commissioner Howard Harris.
Here.
Commissioner Hearns.
Present.
Commissioner Kiefer.
Present.
Commissioner Lawson.
Here.
Commissioner Moulton.
Here.
And Chairman Derryberry.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I get the job of appointing a vice chair, and she didn't know this before she got here tonight, but I did ask her, and I believe she has agreed unless she's changed her mind. But I'd like to appoint Lisa Moulton to be my vice chair of the commission here, should I be unable to attend the meetings to run the meeting agendas. Okay, we'll go ahead and move into our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. We have Chaplain Lieutenant Colonel Timothy Ullman from the Edwards Air Force Base here. So if you go, please stand.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and pray for the Commission. We bow our heads for prayer. Almighty God, it has been said, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. This afternoon, we give you thanks for the dedicated and selfless service of the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission, dedicated civil servants who have found themselves in the service to the men, women, and families of Lancaster. Bless them and keep them in the work they do on behalf of their fellow citizens. Guide them with your wisdom and give them understanding as they look to the future and well-being of this city. Lord, it is an immense task to set a positive vision and take positive actions amidst the many challenges put before them. Guide these servants to proactive and actionable solutions to reinvigorate and rebuild Lancaster's neighborhoods. Bless their discussions on paving the way, sexual assault service, the master plan of bike and trailways, and uniting neighbors in a team effort. Bless those who present today, as well as those who listen. Grant the decision makers foresight for the people of Lancaster. Finally, loving Father, grant to all the citizens of Lancaster your blessings throughout this year. Keep them safe, free from fear, and filled with love for family, friends, and this community. May each man, woman, and child truly find themselves as they serve one another in this great city of Lancaster. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
You all remain standing and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I get the pleasure to really thank four gentlemen, but two gentlemen who are here presently for their service to the city of Lancaster. Really, without them, the last couple of years that I sat on this commission, I would really know very little about much of what we did. I so really have to thank them specifically. Tim Sturdivant, first of all, he was served as our chairman of this commission for the last few years, and really kind of led the way with help educate us about Section 8 and the housing voucher programs, with his knowledge and everything that he had and his experience from coming from San Diego. And then behind him we had Larry Grooms, who helped assist us in the same manner. So I have a plaque for these two gentlemen. So if you want to meet me out front, I'd like to shake your hand and thank you formally. So Tim Sturdivant and Larry Grooms. Okay, with that, I now have the pleasure to thank all of our new commissioners. Our two Lone Rangers here next to me have been with us the longest, but it's been a short ride, but we've got a lot ahead of us. The mayor recently wrote me a letter about kind of the direction that he has for this commission, and it's his goal, and the city's goal, is to make sure that we bring together the citizens, the community leaders, the other government entities and agencies, and the other community-based organizations to help these neighborhoods in this community, and focus on some of the things we're already doing with the help of some of the commissioners here, with the neighborhood wellness homes and the impact homes, and how can we bring some of these ideas into every neighborhood and not just the few that we've done. So he's got a lot of good ideas. I've been working with city staff here the last couple weeks to try to come up with ways that we can keep the focus in the neighborhoods and expand upon that. One of the things that the city's real excited about is a program called Asthmopolis, and it's a way to detect the asthma outbreak in a child before it happens. And this is something that, if you guys have seen our neighborhood ER at Antelope Valley Hospital is inundated with, with things that if we could prevent them, or at least know they were coming, it would help on that end, as well as save the state and local entities a ton of money. With the amount of money that's spent on asthma, for instance. An asthma inhaler is very inexpensive, but if it's not there when it's needed, it can be extremely expensive through the use of the medical community and whatnot. So that's just one of the many things that I think that the ideas that we're having to try to innovate the city to be on the forefront. I mean, we've already done so much as it is with the community involvement with the wellness and impact homes. So we're trying to take what we've already started there and expand upon this. So we're going to put it on the agenda, I think, probably for May, this Asthmopolis presentation, to show really what they could do, and if it's something that that we think would be good, that we can bring it forth to the city council. So so I'm new with you guys. I know I've been on the commission, but our goal has kind of changed. So I'm open to ideas from everyone that's here, city staff and citizens, and everyone included. So I thank you all for being here, and I guess let's start our meeting as a new commission. We have, the first item is public business from the floor. This is a time for citizens who would like to address the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission on any agendized item. Please complete a speaker card and identify the agenda item you would like to discuss. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Do we have any speaker cards today?
No, Chairman, we have none.
So we'll go ahead and, now we have the consent calendar, which we have one item, which is the approval of the meeting minutes from the last meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, so we can all go ahead and vote. The motion carries with one abstention from Commissioner Lawson. Okay, we're new business item 1. The Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission meeting scheduled for April 3rd will be canceled. It's been advised that we are unable to do the meeting due to this facility temporarily housing supplies for the election in April, so we're going to go ahead and cancel that. So now I'm going to go off the agenda for a minute to a addendum. I'm going to invite Liz Brubaker to come up, and we're going to establish a date for a special LNVC meeting to hold a workshop to identify the impediments to the fair housing in Lancaster.
Good afternoon. We're going to be conducting a workshop, and primarily what we're going to be discussing is the fact that there's a issue with not being able to serve the citizens of Lancaster with services from LA County. So I know that many of you work in the field and understand that we don't have the services from the county to provide to our people in need who need those services. So those of you up there that are in the fields, the medical field, it would be greatly appreciated if you could get some of your colleagues to come for that meeting and speak on that issue. And I will also be seeking out all of the organizations and institutions that I work with that have had issues with not receiving services from the county for the people that they work with that need those services. Our consultant will be here, and they will be listening to the conversations that go on, and we're hoping that that goes into our analysis of impediments to fair housing. The dates are March 26th, Tuesday, or March 29th, Thursday, at 2 o'clock. And I'll give you time to think on what would be the best date for you as a group. Yes?
Two comments, or maybe questions. In relation to the services that are needed, is it specifically medical services, or what other services are you looking for?
Adult protective services, child care services, any type of services for those who may be challenged economically through a disability, medical, any type of need that they have. So it's anything and everything.
Okay. And then second, I can say for myself that the 29th would probably be best for me.
Okay.
Because on Tuesdays I'm in Los Angeles for my job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does the 29th work for anybody else?
It works for me. The 29th does.
Okay.
Works for me, too.
Okay.
Yeah, you said 2 p.m. on the.
Yeah.
I think everyone's nodding their head. The 29th at 2 would be fine.
Okay, I'll see you here at 2 o'clock on the 29th, and we'll go from there.
Will the meeting be here in this chamber then, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So let's make sure we do our best to fill the room as best as possible. I don't know, would it be possible to get some flyers maybe to put at the wellness and impact homes to see if we can get, not only some of the medical community, but the citizens as well, to see what their perspective is on where the holes are in the city. I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, we may be able to do a press release or something like that, also letting the community at large know about the event, too. So there's a couple things that we can do.
And just so I'm clear, this commission will be leading the meeting, is that correct, or will it be led by the consultant?
You folks will be sitting as you are currently, so this will actually be a special meeting of the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to new business item 2. We'll have a presentation from Paving the Way Foundation regarding the services and programs they currently offer to the residents of the city of Lancaster. Today we have their executive director, Janie Hodge.
Chairman, if I may, our presenter is actually running a few minutes
Okay.
late, so if we can just move on to new business 3 and then go back to new business 2 when our presenter gets here.
No problem. So I know that this person is here. We have our presentation from SARS, which is the Sexual Assault Response Service Program. Lisa Rodriguez.
Hi. My name is Lisa Rodriguez, and I am the director of the Sexual Assault Response Service here in the Antelope Valley. I gave you all a copy, a little bit of a history, and I gave you some statistics of who we serve. We serve all of victims in the Antelope Valley that come in for sexual assault. Here in Antelope Valley Hospital, we respond to Lancaster, we respond to Kaiser, and I'm really nervous. Sorry.
Don't be.
So we provide 24 hours, 7 days a week, crisis calls, 24-hour hotline. We provide court accompaniment. We do individual group counseling. We also provide group counseling, self-defense classes, resources and referrals here in the Antelope Valley. Sexual assault is really, nobody really talks about sexual assault here in the Antelope Valley, but, our statistics are fairly high. We responded last year to about 300 cases in the emergency room. We service about 1,000 for our grant year. Our grant year is from September to August. So I just wanted to come here today just to give a little bit of awareness about what we do and how we serve our community here in the Antelope Valley. So, thank you.
Lisa, where do you get your funding from, just out of curiosity?
From the state, CalEMA. Yeah, we were just cut a huge loss. We only have 3 staff members that actually work in the office, and we have about 15 advocates that help out to respond to the sexual assault cases, because we respond 24 hours a day, all night.
Well, I know that, from some of this experience and speaking with the medical community and the sheriff's department, I mean, you really provide an invaluable service to those that are assaulted. Without them, most of them don't have an advocate. When I worked in I worked for the DA a long time ago, and I remember, your counterparts in other areas, how really truly helpful you were to those in need. So, we really thank you for your service to the community. So,
Thank you so much.
Commissioners have any comments or questions for her?
Hi.
Linda,
Thank you.
Oh, it's different. I'm used to the one at Kaiser. I do think your service is wonderful, and I know SARS has been in existence for probably 20 to 25 years, if I'm not mistaken.
34.
34?
Yeah,
See
34.
I used to be the ER director. I was there when it started. Where's your office located there?
On 10th Street West.
10th Street West?
Mm-hmm. And
Okay.
10th Street West and Jackman, right on the corner.
Okay. And do your advocates still go to court?
Yes.
They do.
We do. We spend a lot of our time in court. We actually, we're able to take the stand with the victim. We do the victim impact statements, things like that.
Great.
Prepare them for the court process.
Okay, so the processes are still the same.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I just want to thank you for giving victims a voice. Often, they are the silent ones, and they are the ones that should have the right to speak and the right to be heard. Matter of fact, one of the members of our church who's a minister was one of your volunteers, and she enjoyed it immensely. And I just want to join my colleagues in saying thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
I apologize if you stated this earlier, but you mentioned that there were 1,000 cases a year.
We serve about 1,000 clients, so whether we responded to the emergency room 300 times, but we have about 1,000 clients, and that's giving, counseling. Sometimes we don't get the victims to the emergency room. They just come in. It happened, a few years ago or months, so we don't take them to the ER to get a medical legal exam. So we provide other services for them, like the counseling groups, things like that.
Now, that 300 visits to the emergency room, is that an increase over last year, or is that about a steady?
It's a little bit of an increase. We were averaging about 250, 260. So now we're about 300. And this year so far, our grant year hasn't ended, and we responded 196 times so far. And that's just been since September.
Wow.
Mr. Chairman, may I throw something out here real quick?
Please.
Just Lisa, and working with Sergeant Dawson from the station also in their involvement, we've been working with them on relocating their office on some prospective areas we have throughout the city that I think will be more appropriate for their setting, as well as the fact they do some community outreach out into the schools. We're going to be doing, hopefully involving them here at Antelope Valley High School here in the very near future on some sexual assault training for the students at the schools and preventative measures. So they're very busy, okay, on extremely limited funds. So anything that, any thoughts that we can provide out there throughout the community to help them further their cause just because of the impact they've taken. They work tirelessly. I see they're in the courts on a regular basis out there with the victims of these assaults, and that's kind of a precarious position they're in. They absolutely need an advocate while they sit there in the hallway with family members of defendants in these cases and things that you're aware of. So that service they provide, I don't think we can actually measure how important that is. Because without the victims coming forward, how do we address it? So,
Do you solicit funds from other organizations throughout the city, or is all your funding strictly from a government level?
All the funds are strictly from government, from the Calumet grant. It's just one grant that we have.
Are you a nonprofit organization, or?
We're through Valley Oasis, the Domestic Violence Council. We used to be with the hospital, and 5 years ago, will be 5 years in November, the hospital let the program go and kept just the forensic service part of it, and let the advocacy part go. So Valley Oasis, the Domestic Violence Council, picked up the program in November 4 years ago. So that's how we had to transition from the hospital to Valley Oasis. So we're with the Valley Oasis Domestic Violence Council.
Okay.
Lisa, if somebody wanted to be involved, they just come to your office?
Yeah, they can call. There's a hotline number on there that's, like I said, 24 hours.
Okay.
We do 2 trainings a
That's
year.
what I was going to ask. Okay.
We're just finishing up one now. We've added domestic violence in the training because we're also not only responding to sexual assault cases, now we've also included domestic violence. Being with, the Valley Oasis Domestic Violence, it just made sense. If the victims are in the emergency room, they also need an advocate, a voice for them. So we're also now responding to domestic violence cases there at the emergency room.
How long is the training?
The training's about 4 weeks. Okay. No, 8 weeks. I'm sorry, 8 weeks. Because we increased it. It was 40 hours, but now including the domestic violence, it's gone up. Well, it's 76 hours now.
6 hours. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lisa, would it be possible to let the city staff know next time you do the training so that we could advise the commission and
Sure,
see
absolutely.
whatever we can do to help to maybe provide you with more advocates if possible?
Oh, that would be great. Our next training is in August, so I'll definitely have enough time to provide all the information to them.
Anything else for us, Lisa?
No, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for helping us.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
We have another presenter that's running a few minutes late, so if it's okay with the commission, I will go ahead and do my Unite program update, and then
Please.
as we have our presenters come, they will follow along.
So, okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll push number 4 to the end, and we'll do our Uniting Neighbors in a Team Effort, our Unite program presentation by city staff. Patty Garibay. Sorry, it says Patricia.
That's my cool name.
I know.
All right, and I apologize for the, for us having to be a little flexible today, but I know it's the first meeting, so we're getting used to everything. I did want to provide a program schedule update and kind of let you guys know the progress that we've made on the Unite program. We're very excited to host this program again. This will actually be our 3rd year hosting it, and so, it's definitely taken off even more than we thought when we originally thought of the program. A couple of areas that, actually, first I wanted to talk about the progress that we're making, and then the second thing I wanted to share is also some areas where we think you as commissioners could be very vital as supporting, or actually in supporting the program and helping us with marketing it, and also kind of getting the word out to the organizations that you're all working with currently, and then also in the communities that you're doing work in. As you can see from the calendar, our program schedule starts back in January, and actually at that meeting, what we did is we talked about our goals for the year for this commission, and so the 4 pillars that we talked about was first, working more with community-based organizations and knowing who they are and what they do in the community, and obviously, we had SARS here this afternoon, and we've had other groups like AV Partners for Health and Neighborhood Impact talk about the services they provide for that reason, with the goal of us being able to partner together at some point. So that was the first thing that we talked about as our goal. We also talked about having a focused effort with the Unite program, and so rather than us kind of going throughout the community and providing this as an opportunity for everybody, really focusing in our efforts in one area. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. We talked about town hall meetings and using those as an opportunity for you as commissioners to hear about what's going on in the neighborhoods and to hear it from those people that live in the actual neighborhoods, and to understand what their what issues, what problems they're having, and what good things they're seeing in the neighborhoods. And then finally, we talked about the Unite program and definitely building upon the success of that. So that was back in January, and I know this is new information for all of our incoming commissioners. In February, we talked about neighborhood selection, and so as I mentioned, we rather than having looking at a lot of different areas for us to focus our efforts, we wanted to be very selective and go into those neighborhoods that are most in need of resources. At that meeting, if you all recall, or a few of you recall, we talked about 2 different neighborhoods. We discussed the El Dorado neighborhood and Joshua, and we talked about some of their demographics, some of their pros, cons, and as a commission, you decided that El Dorado was the best area for us to focus our efforts in because, one, it's an older neighborhood. They're having a lot of issues with violence and burglaries, and also it is a neighborhood that hasn't really received any resources in a very long time, and so we decided to focus in on that area for Unite. And so, as you know, that's the biggest change with the Unite program this year. Again, we're not focusing in on the entire community. We're just going to go ahead and provide the program for El Dorado neighbors and for them to use this as an opportunity to build upon their community and do something positive in their neighborhoods. Now, as far as March goes, you see that we've started our sheriff involvement, and actually Lee's been he's been our point person with working with the Sheriff's Department. They already have a strategy that they're working on. Obviously, we're not going to give you details because when you're trying to get the bad guys, you don't want to let them know how you're going to do it. But we do have a strategy that we're working on, and one of the things that we talked about back in January is that you don't want to go into a neighborhood as commissioners before you have sheriff do some work, and so that's what they're doing now is cleaning up the neighborhoods, figuring out who the bad guys are, where they are, and kind of getting those out of the way. And so the residents will feel more comfortable coming to a town hall meeting and letting us know what issues they see happening. And actually, the one thing I forgot to mention is sheriff involvement, as you see, starts in March and goes all the way throughout the program. And the reason for that is that we've always talked about the sheriff having a continued enforcement in the neighborhood. So not just going in there once, cleaning it up and leaving, but cleaning it up, coming back, having that presence, so that the neighbors know that we're serious about these areas being cleaned up, and then so that the bad guys also know that we're not going to tolerate any kind of crime and things like that. As you know, we're not going to have a meeting in April, and so our goal in April will be to reach out to our schools. One of the things that we found is that working with the local schools, elementary schools, and high schools, we can really make a bigger impact in the community. Those tend to be smaller communities within the community. And so if we can work as commissioners, if we can have, a few of you present with us when we meet with, the principal at El Dorado Elementary, for example, and really, let them know what we're trying to do through the Unite program and get their buy-in on it, and have them, let us use their school as a place for us to have a town hall meeting, that would be, a wonderful thing for the program. May is going to be a very busy month for all of us. We have our goal is to have the El Dorado Town Hall and then to also do the Unite Kickoff. We would do both things simultaneously. And so, at the El Dorado Town Hall, we would hear from the residents and kind of understand what they're seeing in their neighborhoods, and then we would also kick off the Unite program and talk about how this is an opportunity for them to become accountable for their neighborhoods and to do something positive, and to talk about some of the projects that have been done and, what they can do to improve their neighborhoods. June and July will be primarily a time when we look at applications. We're actually going to start accepting applications in May, and the final filing date is June 22nd. And so during that time period, or after that time period, what we'll do is we'll use all of you, or a few of you, to help us with the reviews, to review the applications and to see who actually meets our criteria for the programs. Last year, and actually in previous years, you've all been very helpful in both reviewing the applications, helping to interview applicants, and then also selecting. And so we would hope that you guys could all be a part of that this year again. Finally, in August, what we'll do is in our LMVC meeting, we'll announce our projects and hopefully have some of our winners here to announce their project and what they'll be doing at El Dorado. And then finally, in September, we hope to have all of you out there supporting the Unite program on September 22nd. So as you can see, we have a lot of work to be done and a lot of things have already started, and so we hope that you guys will all be participating in all these different efforts that we are working on. One of the things that I forgot to mention also is that one of the really good things about the Unite program is that we've been able to run a very successful program with very little city funding, and that's actually an area where you guys can be a big benefit to us. You're very well connected, you know a lot of different people in the community, a lot of different businesses, and if you could use your your relationships to help us get a grant or to get supplies or things that would make the program free or no cost to residents or to the city, that would be fantastic. So, yes.
I think it would be helpful to know what your needs are, so that we know what to
ask for.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so the El Dorado Town Hall, is this a pilot program?
No, actually, we've done town hall meetings in other areas before.
Okay.
We've had pretty successful ones. We did one in Mariposa, I think, about a year and a half ago, and we had over 400 community members participate. And we had a Lincoln Town Hall. We've had a couple. So
Okay.
it wouldn't be the first.
Okay. So, and then, of course, then there is the expectation of expansion to
The other areas, absolutely. And that's why this would be an opportunity to go into a new neighborhood that we haven't talked to, or residents that we haven't met with yet.
Okay, sounds exciting.
For the new commissioners, the city staff gave us a great presentation about two neighborhoods they wanted to focus on. For those of you that weren't at the last meeting, and it was the Joshua area and El Dorado. So I think the goal of the city, as far as is what I've been told, is to make sure that we go and get deeply enthralled in one of these neighborhoods and then move on to the next one, and then hopefully we can touch all the neighborhoods. It was obviously the goal. So being involved with the Unite program for myself has been 2 years. It's something that's necessary, and I think that once it gets a little bit closer, I challenge everyone to get involved in some capacity, whether it's reviewing the applications, interviewing the applicants. Obviously we'll all be here to announce and participate, but it's a great program, and I think it's focusing on one neighborhood at a time. I think we'll get a better result as opposed to before, when we had so many participants from all over the city. So I think it's a good change. So
Great. Any other questions?
thank you. Thanks, Patty.
Sure.
Janie's here. Okay, well, now we'll go back to our new business item number 2. We're going to have a presentation now from Paving the Way Foundation regarding the services and programs they offer to the residents of the city of Lancaster. We have the executive director for Paving the Way, and that's Janie Hodge.
How want to say good afternoon and thank you very much for having me, and I thoroughly apologize for being late, but there was an accident. I was trying and I got caught in traffic.
There's no traffic in Lancaster.
No, I was coming from L.A.
Okay.
You know, the 405, that I don't understand where all those people come from. I love Lancaster and Antelope Valley. I get on this side of free and it's like, whew, I'm so glad I don't do that anymore. But I want to thank you for allowing me to come and share what's going on with Paving the Way. We have been partners with the City of Lancaster for the last 3 years. We started with a weed and seed project, and we did some neighborhoods where we went in and the Sheriff's Department weeded out the environment that wasn't healthy, and then we came in and did programs. We're working currently on a new strategy because that funding from the federal government went away, so we're working on new projects and a new strategy. One of the main things we did as a weed and seed site was develop a program for reentry, and we're very pleased about the outcome of that program. We started when there was still a PAC meeting at the parole office, and we would go in and talk to the gentlemen and ladies and talk about how they could change their lives. We offered a workshop that would build self-esteem, that talked about family issues, that talked about life after prison, talked about job skills, talked about interviewing techniques. We developed resumes. We developed a relationship with a suit outlet company in Los Angeles, which at the end of a 13-week series would give them a suit so that they would have a resume, a suit, and business cards when they went out for their interviews after this workshop series. We developed a relationship with the Antelope Valley College so that they could go and get some fresh eyes in regards to interviewing techniques. We've graduated about 150 guys. Of those 150 guys over this last 2 years, only one has civicated, you know the word, gone back to prison. And we are very pleased about those outcomes. We have developed a very strong relationship with our guys. We have also, in an effort to make that full cycle from prison to back into the community, worked with a contractor doing solar training. I believe with our mayor that we will be the solar capital of the world. I tell the guys all the time, do they remember when computers started? Do they remember when people came to your house and told you, we're going to put a black box on your TV and you're going to pay for it? It was like, no, but now today, you can't watch TV without the little black box. I believe that solar is the same. And so we are training our guys and developing relationships because in the construction arena, a lot of times they have more freedom in hiring. And our guys have started to work with a contractor in the valley who is doing some hiring up here, and we've had really rave reviews. Our guys take this seriously, and they are very proud and pleased to be able to do the work. So with that in mind, I would like to say thank you. And along with this young lady, if there is anything, we're working with Tapestry to do expungements to get our guys back on the right path and feeling good about themselves. And when they get enough time behind them that they can talk about expungements, we help them through that process as well. But I tell them all the time that the main thing that their focus is to get in, get stable, figure out where they are in their lives again, and start to do positive things, get involved in the community. And what we'd like to do is ask is that please let us open our hearts and our minds to understand that everyone that comes home is not a bad guy. A lot of them just need a second chance. A lot of them just want to come home and do a good thing. But it's very difficult when I come home and everybody tells me no and that I'm this and I'm that. So we try to build self-esteem, and we talk to them and we work with them through the issues of family, because sometimes your family can be harder on you than anybody else as what their expectations are. So with that, I would like to say I'm very proud to work with Lee and the city and the Sheriff's Department, and I am pleased to be before you to let you know what we've been doing. We also have a community garden. The community garden that used to be by Catalyst is now Paving the Way's community garden, and some of our guys actually work there in the garden during the community. So we would like to be able to offer our program and our guys to the community on a positive note. One other thing we've gotten involved in with this solar project is partnerships. I am learning so much about developing relationships and partnerships, and people have stigmatisms or ideas of things until they actually talk to you. So I am so grateful that you let me come before you and explain to you what we're doing and how we're making a change in our community and how the guys are changing to be able to fit back into our community and be positive and not that negative connotation that everyone thinks. questions?
Janie, you said something that stuck out to me. You said that, you want to give these guys a second chance, and I don't want to correct you, but for some circumstances, probably giving them a chance, not the second chance, right?
Well, they think it's a second chance because they figure they blew their first chance. That's how they ended up there. So in their minds, it's a second chance at life.
And maybe I'm out of place, but I mean, I think it would be a great opportunity to involve, paving the way with the Unite program this fall, and see how we can tie them together and bring some of your gentlemen out to this area and help the neighborhood and partner in that.
We would love that.
So maybe I stuck my foot in my mouth, but I think
I love your foot.
It's big. But no, I think I really commend on what you guys do. I think it's great. I mean, you said 150 graduates and won that one word.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I mean,
we are very proud and pleased. We're excited. That shows us that there is out there in the community people that really are willing to try to make a better life for themselves if given the opportunity. They only have to have a place to go and someone to trust and believe in them and walk that walk with them. And that's what we try to be. And with the help of Lee and the Sheriff's Department, it's been an awesome experience for me. I have grown immensely in my own personal life through this experience.
Now, I think it's kind of the question of the day, but, where do you get your funding?
We scrounge around. No. My husband and I have a U-Haul that we utilize those funds. We have joined with Lee, who is coming up with some things from some other grants. We have other grants that we're working on. We have partnered with the Walden House in Los Angeles with the AB 109 project, so those funds will be coming. There's a grant that's doing the Feds are doing a DOL, a Department of Labor grant. We're going after that grant. We're searching and reaching out, and that's why I'm here to let you know that we are striving toward, but with just us striving, it's kind of minimal, but with all of us working together, it's amazing what we could do together.
I agree.
We also do that. Yes, we do. We do. We raise funds. We brought the Sheriff Lee Baca here in October. We did a fundraiser, and we showed him the program and our successes, and therefore we have done fundraisers. And we do also we're doing a car show at the Heroes Park, American Heroes Park on the 24th. So things like that we are continuing. Those are little bitty money, but we'll take all money. But those are things that we are doing as far as trying to help ourselves to stay sustained.
I think the other thing is she's doing a lot more than that. Okay? And I know this is just part because she's focusing on paving the way, but we've resurrected the Weed and Seed program based on, even with the restriction we've had with the money loss. The AB 109 issue, which you're all well, most of you are that were for that presentation, Angela, with her affiliation with probation, that's kind of on the focal point now, and the reentry aspect of all these is what we're focusing on. And as far as the grants that Janie's talking about and the things that we're discussing, all have a reentry component to it. And with the assistance of Bishop Hearns and with Janie and their meetings with folks downtown, we're trying to get a hub designation here in the Antelope Valley, because based on the releases that I went to the Sheriff's Conference 2 weeks ago, the cities of Lancaster and Palmdale are getting about 1,500 of these folks before this program release is finished. Well, obviously there are people that are going to be coming to our community, so our focus needs to be to make them productive folks here that can maintain themselves in a positive way in our community. So that's where we're at, and that's where we're trying to go. Actually, Teresa and Lisa have become a part of that Weed and Seed, our committee meetings. It's a group of people that we get together and we identify what our priorities are and the direction we're trying to go. And we've been doing that for some time with great success, and now we've expanded that into some other things in light of the recent issues with AB 109 and to attach that. She also has been involved with programs at the schools with gang intervention models and things, especially with the girls and everything else. So She's got quite a list of things she's done. Plus, she took a building we had that really looked terrible and turned it into something really nice over there. And
see, the guys
it's a good place for us to meet. So it's turned out well. And then she used the folks that she trained to do that. So.
Yeah. And we also work with the Senior Center. We're working with the Lancaster kindergarten, preschool, developing programs to help them. We do a Women's Day. We did in February for Love Yourself Women's Day, and we had a group of about 150 women. We did nails, pedicures, manicures, hair, had motivational speakers. So we tried to reach out to the entire community. I am probably just talking about reentry because I just came off the freeway for a whole reentry thing. But we tried to meet the needs of our community, and so far I think we have been doing an awesome job. I have volunteers and some TSC program workers that work with me that have been doing a really phenomenal job, and along with God's help, I've just been, every day just getting up and continuing to do it.
So it's not just reentry.
No,
so
it
it's
is
all
not.
these things, and
No, it's
so you know Lisa then, I suspect.
Yes, I know Lisa.
Yeah.
I know Lisa. I know Michelle. I know Miss Hearns. Yes.
Well,
Yes.
good. Well, does anybody have any questions or comments?
Yes, where more your participant housed? I mean, how does the housing situation work for this?
At this point with the AB 109, we have a few houses, apartments that are available in the Palmdale area because I've partnered with a New Beginnings program and they do housing. And currently I'm looking for other housing arenas because that's one of the biggest issues that we're having here is the housing. So right now we're in search of more housing, but at this point we have 2 apartment complexes and 1 home that is being used to stabilize these young men. Yes, ma'am.
I saw on a program a while back about a type of closure or reconciliation type program, and it's interesting that Ms. Lisa is here from the SARS unit and you are here from Paving the Way, because I think this could be a really pivotal aspect of both victim with suspect or the perpetrator.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, is there anything like that that is in place and something that we could work on, even working through the churches in the community to help bring that type of healing to the victims as well as to the perpetrators?
I work in the prison, and that's something that we deal with there. One of the things I've run into is that there is a perpetrator facility that's like 2 blocks over High Road, and so therefore I cannot work with victims because of that. And then some of the guys that I work with are also perpetrators. So that would be an individual kind of thing that I would have to do off-site, but I'm very much open to somehow working that out because I know in the prison, the guys that I talk to that go through that, it does open them to a whole new inner being. When they start to take responsibility for their actions, they start to see that it wasn't just an invisible person that was, that was actually somebody's mother's sister, and now you get to hear how it makes a big, big difference. Sure. But we would have to walk through how that would work and find a place that would be set aside from what we're currently doing.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm open to that. I love amends and making the whole spiritual thing come about because that's very important. Okay. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Some things are just lost, though, right, Janie?
We love Lee. You cannot talk bad about Lee to me, okay? Thank you very much. I was going to say, don't tell that side. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, have a great day.
I saw Brian stepped in, so now we'll get to new business item number 4. He's going to give us a presentation on the master plan for bike and trail ways in the city of Lancaster, how we can keep our neighborhoods healthy. So we have Brian Luedeke from the planning. He's the city of Lancaster's planning director. So he's going to give us a presentation on the bike and trail ways, which I'm very excited about.
I'm going to talk to you about more than that, actually.
Well, good.
Hi, I'm really pleased to have the chance to talk to you and really talk to you about a lot of the very sharp changes in direction that we as a city are taking, not only in the things that we're doing from a social and cultural standpoint, but understanding the physical component to that and how it affects both the short-term and long-term viability of our community. I'll start by saying that some of what I may say, I hope you aren't offended by. Some of what I'm going to say doesn't reflect necessarily well on what we've done as a planning department or a city in some cases. And it's not that we went out and intended to do the wrong things, but we have had enough time now to see that sometimes what you intended isn't what you really got. So with that as a preface, I will begin. And what I really want to talk about, and I really had trouble kind of focusing this down, so I hope you won't mind that I have 52 slides that I'll talk 5 minutes each one on. But I know you guys will love to talk about it. And I really want to talk about some of the new directions that are coming and what we are seeing from the planning side that is really going to affect how we look at things over the long term. Whoops. Technology is not my strong point. Ooh, there we go. So we have new ideas and we have new challenges. And the first thing that we're going to find is that there's going to be resistance to that. We found it in a number of quarters. I'm a person who loves quotes. They don't necessarily have to be quotes from things that are directly related to my profession, but I love this one from a historian, English historian actually, Barbara Tuchman. She's unfortunately passed away a number of years ago, but she wrote a book called Stilwell and the American Experience in China. And in that, she had quite a quote that I actually keep on my desk. And it says, "To halt the momentum of an accepted idea, to re-examine assumptions, is a disturbing process and requires more courage than governments can generally summon." We, as a government, I think, summon a lot more courage than you find in a lot of places. But we are going to challenge the status quo in a number of the things that we're going to undertake. And one of those is that physical design has health, safety, and economic effects. And as a society, we've tried to ignore that for a long time. Unfortunately, what we have now found is that we are the victim of what I like to call the law of perverse outcomes, which is that people don't always get the results they expect, but they almost always get the results we deserve. And we are getting some of those now. And I think it's time to recognize it and time to make some adjustments to how things happen. I also believe that not only as a city, but as a society, we are facing predicaments more than we are problems. Now, what's the difference? A problem is something that we are much better at dealing with. It's a question to be considered, solved, or answered. A predicament is different. It's a difficult, unpleasant, or embarrassing situation from which there is no clear or easy way out. And with things that you wrestle with as a commission, the things we wrestle with from a planning and city standpoint are predicaments. And I applaud you for many of the things that you as a commission have been willing to wrestle with because they are predicaments. There's a difference. When you are dealing with predicaments, you really have to be a lot better at horizontal thinking, as we call it, as opposed to vertical thinking. And what we are doing is we're doing a lot more horizontal thinking about how to deal with our situations. If I can use an example, vertical thinking is generally problem, solution. I have a headache, I take an aspirin. Horizontal thinking likes to get into, why do you have headaches? Are you eating the wrong kind of food? Did you have a fight with your spouse this morning? And in the long run, horizontal thinking will usually get you a better range of solutions that vertical thinking may not. So some of the things I'm going to talk to you about are more of a horizontal thinking kind of thing. Predicaments normally require that you go through some sort of horizontal thinking process. Well, let's talk about what we really want as a city. And we've kind of stated that. We want our city to be a livable community. We want health, safety, economic vitality, and sustainability. If you talk to almost any of our residents, they will tell you, maybe in not quite the same words, that that's what they want. And our neighborhoods are really the building blocks of this livable community. I know this because the City of Lancaster General Plan says so. It says that you have to promote the neighborhood as the building block of urban design to achieve a sustainable community form, providing for the needs of existing residents and businesses while preserving choices for future generations. So we have a general plan in the city that says that's important. We know from our experience that neighborhoods are the building blocks of that. And I still get the question from people, why do we care? Why do we care about the neighborhood? And the answer is that any improvements in these 4 areas have to start at the neighborhood level. They are the building blocks of the livable community, and I'm going to start to plant a seed with you, is that upcoming generations, the people that are now in their teens and their 20s and are beginning to enter that rental and home buying stage, they want real neighborhoods. And we know that from research that we're doing. And we need to define what we're talking about. What are real neighborhoods anyway? They have physical, social, and economic characteristics. Viable neighborhoods, by their nature, are community in their interaction. People know each other. They may not go to each other's house for dinner, but they know each other. They know who belongs there. They know who doesn't. And here's my observation. Housing tracts are not neighborhoods. Builders may call them that, but they're not. They can, however, be a part of one. But it's our job and our role as a city to make sure that what occurs in our city fits into that neighborhood kind of concept. Real neighborhoods have a mix of uses, an ability to travel in a number of different ways, and they actually have places people can walk to. And that's very important because those areas and neighborhoods that can be walked to become the gathering points. They become the social centers. They become the places where people get to know each other. In some places, that may be a place where people walk their dogs. In the case of some of our neighborhoods, it may be that wellness home where those kids get to know each other, or those parents of those kids get to know each other. It's a very important component of a neighborhood. That physical design, as I said, has a social component to it. I believe that our greatest challenge in the next 20 years is not really going to be how to build new, good neighborhoods, although certainly we should go for that if people are willing to do it. But I think it's going to be how we effectively retrofit the existing neighborhoods we have, or the existing residential areas, so that they are real neighborhoods. If we don't, if we fail in doing that, the next generations that are coming up are not going to want to live there. We know that from what we're seeing. And we have several time frames that I want to talk about, but I want to talk about the future. I want to talk about what's viable in the future. When I talk to people in the community about this, they are stunned when I tell them that they may not find buyers for their house 20 years from now without change. And I have gone back and looked at what our real estate professionals and our building professionals nationwide have said about the upcoming millennial generation. They don't want a suburban existence. They don't want what their boomer parents lived in. They don't want to drive everywhere they go. They want a neighborhood that is walkable, and they are not willing to compromise on that very much. The future is not going to look like the present. In some ways, it's going to look a little more like the past. For people who remember what neighborhoods may have been like in the 40s, that's what this millennial generation coming up is really looking for. Here's what realtors and builders are really noting about millennial buyers or renters. They want walkable locations, and they want walkable locations that doesn't just mean you can walk around your block. They want to be able to walk to places that are these gathering or third places, as sociologists call them. They want a truly mixed neighborhood. That's one thing that we're finding about the upcoming younger generation. When they say they want diversity, they absolutely mean it. They want diversity in their workplace, they want diversity in their neighborhood, they want diversity in their social contacts, and they want neighborhoods that make that possible for them. They want walking and biking opportunities, they want to be close to transit. That is a major shift from what we saw 20 years ago. They don't want to be much more than a mile away from their daily necessities, whether that's grocery stores, schools for their kids, or whatever else. And we're finding this over and over when especially realty agents talk about what these millennial buyers and renters are looking for. I will say this, residential areas that don't manage to meet this goal are not likely to fare well in the future. James Howard Kunstler is a person who's been observing urban and suburban development in the nation for quite a while. He's rather acerbic, he's rather crude, and he's rather understated, if you can call that understated. He sees three destinies for what he calls the suburbs, in other words, places that are auto-dependent. They can be salvage sites, slums, or ruins. He says they require liberal amounts of cheap oil to operate, and they are a living arrangement with no long-term future because of that. And that's something that we really need to get a grasp on as we look to the future of our city. Oil's not going to disappear, but it's going to be much more expensive. And with that is going to come the lack of an ability to live huge distances away from where we conduct our daily lives, where we work, and where we recreate. John Hess, CEO of an oil company that runs on the East Coast, stated this pretty clearly almost a year ago. He said that an energy crisis is coming. It's going to be triggered by oil, and he said the $140 per barrel price of 3 years ago was not an aberration, it's a warning. So we have to be prepared for the fact that energy costs are going to continue to rise. This kind of shows where we're going in terms of energy supplies. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because you can spend hours researching this. I will tell you that this particular chart kind of identifies the gap that has to be met between what they project can be produced and what has to be produced. This particular chart is actually being used by the U.S. Department of Defense as they chart their strategy for the next 20 years. So, where are we at? Residential areas that upcoming generations don't want to live in cannot be viable. If people don't want to move into neighborhoods, they don't want to spend, they don't want to invest, then they're not going to be viable places. And we really have to make a choice as a city. Do we want places where people choose to live, or do we want places where people have to live because they have no choices? Much of what we have in our city and in the Antelope Valley is unfortunately built for a past residential market. It's not really positioned for what's coming in the future. They're not walkable, they're not mixed, and they're very auto-dependent. As we've already noted, that's not a good position to be in for attracting the future. Let's talk a little bit about neighborhoods. Neighborhoods actually are almost, and the study of them is one of the very few American, almost totally American things that comes out of planning history. This gentleman, Clarence Perry, actually came up with what was the neighborhood unit concept back in the 1920s. And in his sketch, this is what he saw as the sort of neighborhood building block that ought to occur. Now, if you look at this, it's about 160 acres. It's bounded by some pretty major streets, but it has a lot of the daily needs mixed within it. That includes schools, churches, some different kinds of housing at the corners, some places for daily necessities. So, in the 1920s, this was what development community and people in general were looking at as kind of living arrangements. You can find these neighborhoods, parts of Los Angeles have them, and it tends to be that age of the 1920s or maybe the 1930s when a lot of this occurred. Unfortunately, this is what we've gotten as a typical neighborhood, and Lancaster's not unique in this, but this is what we have in our 160 acres now, and you can see that one thing that's notable about it is about the only thing in it is a lot of housing, and it's not housing that's terribly well connected. I always really wonder about this poor person if they ever had to get out to this corner, because I think they would have to walk up here and walk over and walk back down to here, or they'd have to walk back over here and walk back up here and walk back down there. And it's not that we really intended to create a hostile environment for them, but as the law of perverse outcome says, we get what we deserve, not necessarily what we thought we were trying to get. We're not the only ones to do this. We can do it on a small scale too. we managed to create this very interesting street pattern. I must admit I was a part of this. And we managed, instead of connecting this through, now you must move over here and then back over this way till you finally get up to Avenue K. If you are this person or this person and wanted to walk to the college, you have a bit of a hike in front of you. So once again, the question here is this walkable? Is this really the kind of environment that we want to create that's that walkable sort of thing? And do people walk in these kinds of settings, given a choice? It's not overt, but it's hostile. This is not in our city. This happens to be in the Rancho Vista area of Palmdale. This is an example of creating an impossibly difficult situation if you want to go to a park or get something at the grocery store. These poor people who live here have no direct way to get there. They will walk up here or drive up here and walk around, or they'll walk back over here and they'll walk back over that way. And I think by the time that they make up their mind to do that, they're just going to drive their car anyway. This would be an interesting master's thesis or PhD for someone to figure out how many gallons of gasoline get burned just in having to make these kinds of unique pathways to get to places. When we talk about mixed areas, you also have to have the connections, and we don't have them here. Once again, no one set out to make this a hostile environment for people who want to do other things other than drive, although it's not that great for motorists either, but that's what we've gotten, and that's what we have to start dealing with. Our schools, I've got a few slides later that'll show you this, but even our school locations, this happens to be Amargosa. And you can see that the way that this is set up, it's a very difficult, long, circuitous path to get there, even if you wanted to walk. I talked one time with the superintendent of the West Side School District, and we were talking about school sites. And she told me that even children who live 6 doors away are driven to school by their parents. She sat out at one of her schools and watched that. That's a very interesting shift from when I remember growing up. Many more children walked, and part of it had to do with this. The route to school can be dangerous. This happens to be one of the crossings at J8 for kids who have to walk up to Amargosa. This is near my neighborhood. I see about an 11-year-old boy almost every morning, because he's going to school about the same time I'm coming to work. He's on a bicycle, and he gets to cross this road every single day. At about 7:40 in the morning, you have traffic headed to the college, traffic headed to the freeway on-ramp. It's traveling at about 50 to 55 miles an hour, and it's a scary scenario trying to watch him push his bike, as he doesn't ride it. He walks it across here, and he's looking to see if anybody is going to stop for him or not. And quite often, unfortunately, they don't. He'll get partway out here. I've seen this where he'll get a couple people stop here, he gets out here, and the traffic going the other way will not stop for him. I don't think anyone intends to be that way, but the environment that we've created is very, very hostile to even a school child who's not, being driven. We've spent a lot of our time designing for cars. We have to get back to designing for people. Lincoln School, I think is the name of this. It's at 15th East in Avenue J8. Once again, a lot of difficulty because of the way the walls have been put up and other things. This is not an easy area to walk to school in, even though the school is in the middle of this neighborhood. And a final example, this is down in Rancho Vista again. A school that's even in that fairly new community, a lot of areas cut off and not easy to get to from where you're going. So, I will say, we are getting the results we deserve, and those results are not good. There is a great deal of evidence now that how we design our physical environment has a lot to do with our health. And here's a couple of them. In 2003, the first real study that came out said measuring the health effects of sprawl was the first one to really link the increased rate of obesity with the types of environments that we live in. This was really correlated in 2008 by a study from the University of Utah. This was a very, very large-scale study done of almost every resident within the Salt Lake County or Salt Lake Valley area. And what they did is they measured the body mass index of residents, and they correlated it to where they lived. And what they found was that the older the neighborhood people lived in, the less likely they were to be overweight. If you lived in a neighborhood that was 1950 or older, as a man you probably weighed on average 10 pounds less, and as a woman 6 pounds less than the average weight in that area. A very, very strong study that shows that there's a reason that our physical environment is affecting our health. Why before 1950? Because before 1950, neighborhoods were designed with the idea that walkability was a way to get around. They not only had walking connections, but they had places you could actually get to by walking. Those have disappeared in development since that time. In 2011, it's not just school kids. One of the greatest epidemics of obesity, believe it or not, is in the fire service. Firefighters, on average, they have more obesity and more overweight than the general population. Why would that be? Well, they have a fire station that they're in. They aren't allowed to really go out and walk around. But and of course they're worried about that because they have a very stressful and strenuous job when they have to go out and do it. But it really begins to show that because they are kind of locked into one location, that our children and our adults that are locked into locations like that in the neighborhoods where they live are experiencing the same kinds of effects. There is no doubt that how we build our cities and how we create our living environments are affecting the health of our citizens. That same study clearly says more than 2/3 of Americans are overweight or obese. That's a huge rise from what we used to have. Our attitude about walking, has sure changed. Some of you may remember this song. It was kind of popular in the early 80s, but talked about walking in LA. It was a group called Missing Persons. And we can kind of laugh about it, but there's some seriousness in the song, If the whole message of the song, if anybody's walking, it's because something's wrong with them. They've run out of gas, or they're somebody you don't want to be around. What do you see? You don't see a cop walking the beat. You only see them driving cars on the street. You won't see a kid walking home from school. Their mothers pick them up in a carpool. Maybe somebody who just ran out of gas, making his way back to the pumps the best way he can. Nobody's walking in LA because only a nobody walks in LA. And that's kind of the attitude that really prevailed for a long, long time. I remember when the Valley Central Shopping Center was being developed, and there was a huge debate about whether sidewalks should be put in. And the developer said, oh no, we don't want sidewalks because people will drive their cars, and if they need to go to a different store, they'll just drive their car from one store to the next. That's how we design these places now. So that attitude and that approach has a lot to do with the environment that we're in. It's kind of interesting now. It used to be that people were kind of afraid of walkers because they figured something was wrong with them. Now they're kind of viewed as elitist. It's kind of an interesting shift. Oh, that's a walker. They're elitist. So I don't know whether that's good or bad, but I think how we approach that and how we kind of convey that to our children is important. Finally, this isn't even the most recent statistics. These are only till 2004 from 1974, but you can see the huge increase in obesity and overweight children in just that time. And Michelle, I'm sure, could give you statistics that are even more frightening from the Antelope Valley in general. School design and placement. In 1955, when the Monte Vista neighborhood was laid out, the school went in the center and you had streets that connected to it, and they were local streets, and it was fairly easy for children to walk, and a lot of children walked there. In 1985, as we talked about in Lincoln School situation, it seems like we did our best to make sure that they couldn't. I don't think we intended to do that, but it certainly looks that way. We've tried to do our best to make up for walking. This one is one of my favorites. We actually have a crosswalk here in Valley Central. We have a handicap ramp and we have grass. There's no sidewalk that comes to it. But rest assured that if anyone needs to get across, the sidewalk and the ramp are there for them, not only here but on the other side. And, unfortunately, we're not the only city that's doing this. This is my favorite one in Reading, Pennsylvania. As you'll notice, you can cross here, but this is a concrete wall and a slope. So, but you can walk to here if you want. And you can walk to here if you'd like, although this concrete wall kind of inhibits you from going any further. But at least there was some thought being given to walking. I don't know whether there was a requirement or whatever. I really do like the handicapped ramp. I think that's a great touch. That's important if you're going to go there. In Florida, this was a new street that they opened. They were having a family walk day on it. It's not exactly the street I think I'd like to walk on with its approximately 8 lanes of traffic, but this is obviously a place that they're proud of. And I don't know where you'd walk to on it, but they were working on that side of it. So back to this neighborhood concept, and how do we kind of get back to that, especially in our existing areas? Well, one of the easiest ways is to start connecting our streets. This is the way that we have done street design in some of our areas for a long, long time. Not only forcing motorists out on long, odd ways to go, but forcing people who want to walk. Now, in some cases, they've managed to create, pedestrian paths and things through here, which does help the walking community. It doesn't necessarily help the motorists, and part of what we're talking about is making it safer for them. But you can see that if you actually connect your street system together, you can have things that occur without forcing people out onto these major arterial streets. And that's I don't know if anyone has ever walked along any of those streets, but they're not real pleasant, and they're not under much observation. They're really nobody's space. At least within the neighborhood, there's a sense that there's some control and some viewing and some observation that's going on. And of course, if you've done, in your research on what leads to crime environments, lack of observation is not a good thing. So we can do a lot better as far as doing this, and in some cases, if there are places that can be rebuilt or places that can be retrofitted, making those connections is an important concept, and that's one of the things our Master Plan of Trails is talking about. And we did recently adopt, through the City Council, that Master Plan of Trails. And a key element that we have in there is that better pedestrian and bicycling design is taming the traffic, essentially through a concept known as complete streets. Complete streets is the idea that streets ought to be designed to be equitable, that you should be able to bicycle and walk and drive safely on them. The goal is really to make those public spaces again places that people want to be in, not places that people want to avoid. This may seem crazy. People walk when the environment is conducive for walking, but that's what studies show. The greatest single factor in whether people walk is whether it's easy to walk. And this study out of Hunter College in New York City found a number of things that I think are important for us to consider. Infrequent walkers said they would be more likely to walk if the physical environments were conducive for it. More school children walk to school if their parents are also walkers. So people who are children pick this up from their parents or their guardians or the people that are basically that they're in the care of. What are the biggest problems that walkers confront? Interestingly, crime was not one of them. What'd they find? Distracted and speeding drivers is the biggest problem. That's what they're most afraid of. Unsafe sidewalks, things that need repair, or a lack of sidewalks, and poorly lit streets. Those are the things that walkers find as the most compelling problems and the most the worst barriers to them actually walking. So ways to improve walkability and safety. The city has already done some of these. It is going to do more of them. One thing that we're looking at is that when development comes into some of our existing neighborhoods, we can get better design, we can get better density, we can get that mix of use that especially that millennial generation wants, and we can get better walkability while we're doing it. This particular development is actually in Camarillo, and it has a mix of single family and townhouse and other things in them, but its streets and its sidewalks are designed for better walkability. Children feel safer, traffic moves more slowly. The design, quite frankly, is pretty attractive. And as you can see, it all seems to fit together pretty well. There are places in existing neighborhoods where this kind of project can help to be that connecting street system or be part of that destination that we're really trying to create in those gathering places in those neighborhoods. Pretty well done. You'll be a little stunned when I tell you that this is military housing. It was built in the last 2 years for off-base housing in the Camarillo area. But it's very interesting to me that when the military built it, they built it with all the features that we find that millennial generations want. They obviously spent some time researching what their own enlisted and officer people wanted. This is such a good project that the manager of it, it's some 350 units altogether, said she frequently gets inquiries from the neighborhood around it or the community, people who don't know that it's military wanting to know how they can live there. I don't know when the last time was that people actually wanted to move into military housing, but this is one of those cases because of the design and the way it's been done. Road diets. The city is going to be doing more of these. Road diets are ways to make better streets, not only for the biker and the walker, but for the land uses that are along them. In this case, which is very typical, 4-lane road becoming a 2-lane road with bike lanes and sometimes some on-street parking. Traffic moves more slowly. In many cases, particularly in Lancaster, we have overly wide roadways. Those overly wide roadways contribute to speeding. And speeding, as you may recall, was one of the major factors in affecting bikeability and walkability in our city. They're not only good for those people, they're safer for motorists. Many of the benefits of these things are also for motorists because it reduces the incidence of accidents. You're probably familiar with our most famous road diet. It was actually Lancaster Boulevard downtown. 4 lanes into 2 with some additional parking and so forth. The traffic moves more slowly. The people who are biking or walking are now on an equitable level with people who are driving. No one's been stopped from being a motorist. I kind of got one interesting feedback from a lady who told me she loved downtown, she just didn't like to drive there. And when I asked her why, she said, because I have to think too much when I drive. And of course, that kind of made me wonder what she's doing in places other than downtown while she drives. But it kind of points up the fact that in many cases we've done things so that people can drive almost automatically. I think it's not a bad idea to make people have to slow down, think, and watch what they're doing. Finally, are walkable neighborhoods safer? There's a lot of research that suggests they are. They are places where people get to know each other. It's my observation that you build community at 3 miles an hour, which is the average walking speed of a human being. You build them at community and neighborhood gathering points. People who walk and frequent these neighborhood facilities get to know each other. that is invaluable in terms of building real neighborhoods and real community. Are they better economically? Well, we didn't have a lot of research until recently. And there was a person who went out, Joseph Courtwright, and he used, I don't know if you're familiar with this walk score kind of concept. It's kind of coming up in the realty community now. And he used that to analyze 94,000 real estate transactions in 15 major markets across the United States. And what he found, by the time he corrected and took care of all the variables, is that neighborhoods that were better walkable neighborhoods by that walk score as compared to an average one commanded a premium of $4,000 to $34,000 per house in increased value. There is an economic component, a very positive one, to walkability. And that's what we're finding, and I think that's only going to grow as that millennial generation becomes more and more of a factor in terms of housing rental and housing purchase. The only two markets that this didn't hold in, where there was no discernible difference, Bakersfield, Las Vegas. I'm not sure why, but in those particular cases, there didn't seem to be a notable difference. So, in summing, what are our major points to remember? Walkable and bikeable neighborhoods are in demand now, and the demand is going to rise in the future for social and economic reasons. And we have to be, I think, ready for that. Walkable and bikeable mixed-use neighborhoods have demonstrated health, safety, and economic benefits. We've got the studies now to show that. And creating these types of neighborhoods means breaking from the status quo single-use concept. It's going to require doing things differently than we've done for the last 30, 40, 50 years. But I'm very, very confident that as a city that's been willing to do that in the past, we'll be willing to do that now, because we see the benefit to it. Creating walkable neighborhoods means physically taming the traffic speed. We have to slow traffic speeds down in order to make our community safer. Cars can be allowed, they have to behave. Neighborhoods that are entirely auto-dependent are not going to fare well in what's coming in the future. We know that from watching energy and economic circumstances. And as I said, I think our major challenge is using future infill development to effectively retrofit our existing neighborhoods, to keep them viable, to make them places people want to be, so that they are good for the long term. And I would leave you with that, because that's an end that we're working towards in the planning department, and that master plan of trails and bikeways is a major component of that effort. We are going to be a healthier, more economically viable, sustainable, and livable city as a result of these kinds of approaches. That's my presentation to you.
Well, thank you, Brian. I was one of those kids that lived about 7 houses away from school that used to make my mom drive.
Did you walk?
No, because I went to Joe Walker, and I used to have to walk. I mean, if my mom didn't know, I would hop the fence. But otherwise, I would have to walk literally 2 blocks out of my way to get to junior high.
Okay, so you had some firsthand experience with that.
Oh yeah.
Can I ask you a question, if you don't mind?
Sure.
When Gina Rosal and I were talking about this, I said, wouldn't it just be quicker for them to just walk the child to the school than get in the queue of the cars and come back? And she said, you'd think so, but I think there's a psychological thing that once you get in the car, that you're on your way, even if you have to wait longer but she's watched people literally pull out of driveways and sit in the queue until they drop the child off at the drop-off point, and then they take off to wherever they're going, even though it would be quicker to do it the other way.
I think it's the same reason people don't get out to get their Starbucks and they drive through the drive-through, which is the biggest problem we have. So, I think you made a lot of valid points, and I appreciate the presentation.
Okay. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, or if you think of things later, come find me, email me, and I think it's going to be an exciting journey.
And I'm glad to see the city kind of moving towards this. growing up here and then moving away and coming back and seeing the differences in different communities, San Luis Obispo, where I went to college, for instance, we walked everywhere. I didn't have a car for the first year I was there on purpose, and growing up here, that wasn't possible because of really how geographically spread out everything is. So, I'm glad to see that the city is focusing on making it a little more viable for people to walk and ride bikes, and it's in that neighborhood is very important. And my wife is we're looking for a new house, and that's one of the things she wants, a neighborhood so she can walk and take the dog out and hopefully get to a store without having to get into a car. It's important.
I've had occasion to talk with people over the last 10 years who really wanted to bring their parents up here, either mother or father. And one lady was just very upset. She said, she said, my mother lives in Pasadena. She says, but where she lives, she can walk to her store and she can walk to there. She goes, you have no place to do that here. And I had to admit, she was right. There was no effective place where that could happen, at least in the way that her mother did it in Pasadena. So I think it's a major hole that we have to think about. And planners used to have a term for the kind of subdivisions that we have a lot of. They were always called Peter Pan subdivisions because they were places where everyone was young forever. They were able to drive all the time. But I think that's going to be a major consideration as our population ages, and they want other alternatives. That's going to be, I think, a major challenge.
Well, I think that's why why we see so many people walking the boulevard. I mean, I've seen the transformation of my business being there since 2005, and how very few people drive the boulevard, but there are so many people that will walk from place to place. Whereas if you get to Valley Central Way or some of the other places in the Yellow Valley, if you're in a big shopping center and you're at one end to the next, you won't walk from there and back. You'll get in your car and you'll walk from point A to point. You'll drive from point A to point B as opposed to filling up your hands with bags and taking them back to your car. It's just,
sure.
It's
Yeah. So they designed it. They designed it to drive from one store to the next. It works pretty well in that regard.
Brian, when you talk about retrofitting neighborhoods,
yes.
Is the intent to go into a neighborhood and actually do cutouts as far as creating traffic through the neighborhood? Let's say, for instance, you have a situation where you have a cul-de-sac. Are you talking about opening that cul-de-sac to release traffic, foot traffic, or other traffic to get to the outlying areas?
There could be circumstances where that occurs. I know that when Elizabeth Brubaker was working on some vision plans for some of the various neighborhoods, that there were places identified where that would help in some cases. And in some cases, we always have thought of cul-de-sacs as places where people got to know each other and could kind of defend the area, if you will. But they can also become really horrible traps, for, let's say, the less social part of our population who wants to use it as a place to trap people or do that. So they saw that as an opportunity too. I think that there's going to be other locations, though, where there are still vacant parcels on the fringe or on the outside of those neighborhoods or adjacent to them, where there may be opportunities to put streets through to the outside or create gathering places and other kinds of mixes of uses on the periphery where people in the neighborhood can walk to them and can connect with them. So I think you have to look at each neighborhood individually. You certainly don't want to take somebody's house away from them to do that, but if there's a circumstance where something's gone into foreclosure or something like that, yeah, there may be an opportunity to do that if that is actually going to be a benefit for a neighborhood or there's an identifiable situation that you can remedy.
What about the zoning issues? In other words, if you have a neighborhood and you're trying to make it to where it's more walk-friendly, to where you can go to grocery stores, you can go to other areas that you need services, you're going to have to change the adjacent zoning.
Oh, yes.
And so that is something that's actually going to start to happen.
Yes, we're going to start looking at that, not only in a corridor sense, but the city did adopt a mixed use. I know, for example, if you look at the El Dorado neighborhood, on the very west side of that along Division, there's a vacant piece of property that was I think zoned as moderate density residential or something in the past. We changed that to a mixed use zone, that it kind of allows a mix of residential and commercial uses. There's an opportunity in the long term to kind of connect through there and create a place where that neighborhood can kind of gather, where there's a place that they can feel as a part of themselves, rather than doing the typical wall and creating something that just faces on division. But you are correct, not only from the standpoint of zoning, but how we develop our places. There's a difference in how you create walkable commercial districts and walkable residential districts versus creating things that are simply only for automobile access, so to speak. But I think that's a very perceptive observation.
How much does something like this cost?
From the standpoint of road diets, they can cost as little as $50,000 a mile. From the standpoint of doing other kinds of things, if you've got a developer who's willing to come back in and do some retrofit or develop on the outskirts, you kind of get that as a condition of development. And of course, the goal there is to say you're not only going to gain economically by having a better customer base, but from the city standpoint, you're able to help us complete some of the infrastructure work that we're doing.
Thank you.
Anything else? Brian, thank you very much. I'm actually glad he came last. I mean, it kind of... So thanks for being slightly tardy. That worked out very well for us. All right, we'll finish the day off with public business from the floor. We request that any person who would like to address the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission on non-agendized matters to complete a speaker card, and you will find the speaker cards in the back table of the council chambers. Additionally, we respectfully request that you fill out the cards completely in print as clearly as possible so that if necessary, the commission or city staff will be able to contact you by phone or mail. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. When you approach the podium, please notice there are 3 lights. The green light will come on when you begin, the yellow light will come on when you have 30 seconds remaining, and the red light will come on when you have your 3 minutes are up. We ask that you be considerate of the allotted time to allow other speakers to have their 3 minutes as well. Following the procedures will allow for a smooth and timely process for the commission meeting, and we respectfully appreciate your cooperation. State law prohibits the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission from taking action on items not on the agenda, and your matter will be referred to staff. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, we do. Lindy Williams.
Good afternoon. Thank you guys for taking the time. A little different, but I'll agree with Janie. They really do have a good program. I volunteer over there, and she's right. This guy's pretty good, too. But with that being said, just in general, congratulations to you. Sorry I pointed you out, huh? But if you guys can, please just remember to keep in mind the residents really and truly, we will get involved. You just got to kind of ask. And what I mean by that, if you have the time, if there can be something that can put in place, where literally you stand on the corner where people gather and say, what do you think will help? When the flyers and information goes out, it asks specific questions, such as, what do you think the biggest problem is? Well, if you put it in order, it's usually somewhere on there there's going to be crime, no jobs, this, that, this, that. Well, somebody is writing that. So, of course, the answers are going to be the same. So even if I'm a criminal, crime is going to be number one because I don't want to compete with other criminals. Okay, so when we use that, we gather all this information and we say, see, I told you. Instead of doing that, ask, what do you need? What do you think will help you? From there, you get answers, and you'll be surprised. You'll be like, because really and truly, people might say, we need more police. For the most part, you're going to hear we need jobs and other things. Then from there, take the collective minds, put it together, and make your survey that way, if you could. Because when you're asking somebody what their need, instead of telling them, do you think this is a problem? Of course I think it's a problem. But I'm a criminal, and I don't want other criminals stepping on my money. Right? So, of course, then you get the canned response. Ask. I don't think you can really put up a grease board, but, somewhere at the bus stop, What do you think the problem is with the city of Lancaster in this particular area, blah, 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 blah. And even if you let it be anonymous, you're going to get answers. And you're going to be real surprised at what you hear. For the most part, whether they're criminals or not, everybody still wants the same place to live, shoes, food, etc. But ask. And also with the bike trails, I live on 10th and I, and between I and H, we had accessibility. City took it away. So with the accessibility of things that they're talking about, they only have it where they want it. Somebody's not counting us over there. We had lots and lots of ways to get through. One of the spots was over by the old Vallarta. There's you can pay your bills over there. They put up a huge wall. I know they put up a huge wall because that's where all the criminals ran. Okay, but there's still kids that need to walk to the store. That's the Dollar Tree because we don't have a grocery store. Okay, so we used to walk through our neighborhood and it got walled up. So think about us over there too, please. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Lindy, you're a perfect segue to what I wanted to add during the commissioner's comments. The mayor's kind of challenged me as the chairman to do things different for this commission, and what I'm hoping to do is exactly what you said. We sit here in these council chambers, and I've been doing this for a couple years now, and we maybe get one person to come and speak to us. That's not enough. We do this once a month, so I've kind of been speaking to city staff a little bit, and my goal is, where possible, is to, if it's on a semi-annually, quarterly, annually, whatever it is, to have these meetings in the community, in a town hall meeting, so we can send the invitations through the schools, because the kids will bring the parents to the meeting. And then we have the meetings in the neighborhoods to find out what's missing there so we can come back and report it to city staff. So, I couldn't have asked you to say anything better than you did, because you said exactly this is exactly what this commission needs to do. We need to focus on the neighborhoods, and we need to figure out what's missing, what resources are there. We understand the crime and the jobs and things like that, and I know that's on the city's mind, but it's some of the smaller stuff that maybe is a lot easier to accomplish that we just don't know, because besides you, no one else comes.
Yeah.
So we're looking to change this. We're focusing on the neighborhoods, and that's what and I thank you for that.
Good. Glad to hear it.
So with that, do any other commissioners have any comments or questions or concerns?
Well, and I'm really glad to be on the commission, and I look forward to working with each and every person here. So, thank you.
Well, I think I'm really lucky, because the people that the city has appointed to be on this commission, they make my job a lot easier. I'll tell you that much for sure. So I thank you guys as well, and I thank the city staff, and I'm going to look for you guys, for everyone here in this room, for help over the next year as I act as chairman of this commission, and make sure that I do this commission justice. So with that, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.